Good day, everybody. Here we are in yet another episode of Send It ATV podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest because of the amount of work that he has put into the community. The OHV community in Washington, largely in part by he and his counterparts' efforts, um, it really just shaped what it has become today. He is the vice president of the ATV Association, and he's really lobbying for OHV rights in Congress and the Senate level. So, really, without further ado, Mr. Ted Jackson, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great,
Glad to have you
and
here.
welcome from Washington. Welcome from Washington State.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Well, I appreciate you agreeing to meet with us today and talking about everything you have going on. I know you have been very busy at both the congressional and Senate levels there in Washington. I'd love to hear about the results of all your hard work in the just last several months.
Sure. As a point of clarification, I haven't done much congressional work.
Okay.
My my efforts have been focused on Washington State government and local governments,
Okay.
but I have done a lot of research with the functionality of the U.S. Forest Service as it relates particularly to our state, and working the travel management plan and MFM opportunities. So just want to make that clear.
Okay.
And I'm
Uh,
not a lobbyist, I'm an advocate, because there's a big difference. A lobbyist gets paid for what they do. An advocate gets to express their passion for what they believe in.
Perfect. Understandably. Okay. Well, again, I know you've been very strongly advocating for the sport. What are the results in the last several months that you've been able to come up with?
Well, we've been pleasantly surprised. In Washington, we had a virtual legislative session. And of course, we have a caucus, which is called the Outdoor Recreation Caucus. And at that table, we have all the state recreation agencies engaged. We have a number of our state legislators that are part of that process and in helping shape policy and funding opportunities through the budget process. Um, and it was different because we didn't have any one-on-one engagement like our legislative process allows. And a lot of your discussions happen between the legislators walk between one hearing to the next.
Hmm.
And it involves a lot of time down in Olympia um, to do what we do. But the virtual part of it actually was kind of better, I thought, in some ways, in that um, you had focused conversations and it was more a collaborative approach. So everybody pretty much involved was able to express their interests and desires, and it just kind of made for a more balanced, I thought, balanced approach to a lot of our discussions with regards to the recreation economy. I don't know if you're aware, but Washington State's recreation economy is a $21 billion a year economic sector.
Wow.
And I'm also I'm also a board member on the Big Tent Outdoor Recreation Coalition. And in that organization, we have everybody. We have the um, proponents for endangered species,
Mhm.
habitat, um, wilderness, open space on the county level, open space on the city level. We have all these interests at this big tent um, table. And our primary focus has been to work with the legislature to get them to understand how important the outdoor recreation economic sector is and
Right.
how they need to provide opportunities.
Mhm.
So with that little bit of a background, if you will, um, I wanted to clarify one more point, and, and I don't want to forget that the Washington OHV or Washington Off Highway Vehicle Association has done a lot of the legislative legwork since the 70s, and the AMA in Washington State, that chapter. So I want to make sure they get the due credit they deserve
Awesome.
on that. I'm kind of a latecomer because at the time that they were advocating, I was working in the electrical industry and was fortunate to have a nice union retirement package. So now I've been utilizing my time to help further ATV and UTV access, particularly because Will was doing a good job of covering the motorcycle and Jeeps. So anyway, that's just kind of the working relationship we've had amongst ourselves, and
Okay.
we're affiliated too.
Awesome. Very good. Um, so with that being said, were there any successes of the last meetings or that you were working on?
Um, Actually, yes. In Washington, in 2013, well, let me back up just a touch. In 2011 and 2012, there was a focus on a conversion process for the dirt bikes so that they could get a general on use plate for the roads
Hmm.
so they could gain access to the Forest Service roads, because we had a group of managers that were supporting the no OHV on Forest Service lands, with the exception pretty much of the Colville National Forest and the Okanagan National Forest.
Right. Okay.
So what this allowed them to do, because they went with the highway legal only classification on all their roads, even though you couldn't take a car or truck on a high axle road,
Hmm.
but they were all classified as highway legal. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
Serious animus there.
Hmm.
So anyway, fortunately, there has been a lot of turnover, as you know, happens with the national forest.
Hmm.
So now and then with COVID, there was just this huge influx of population coming to the forest, trying to find a safe place to recreate and experience a break from the COVID lockdowns we had here in Washington.
Hmm.
So now the Forest Service, DNR, Fish and Wildlife, state parks, it just opened their eyes to the potential that they have. So there's been a lot of soul searching
Hmm.
amongst managers, and a lot of, okay, if we, how are we going to manage our landscapes to provide access and recreation? And so it's been a fun conversation listening to them on the big tent screen and also on the caucus level with the legislators. So where are we going in this conversation? I'm a little lost at this point.
Just the success of,
Yep.
what have you gotten now?
So once we achieved the conversion uh, template for the dirt bikes, we went on to provide that for the ATVs. And it took us 4 years, really,
Okay.
to to get this piece of legislation. I had to collaborate and work with some of the conservationists for for uh, for animals and for their habitats,
Mhm.
and work out a agreeable process to implement access. So thanks to Trout Unlimited, they actually put up $6,000 to have this focus group meeting, and that was administered by the Cedar River group. And out of that meeting, I mean, we had sheriffs, we had county people, we had city mayors, we had, the recreation community, and we came up with some basic principles for how this legislation should be structured. And I fought like heck to get it preserved in the Washington Revised Code. And anyway, that's in 4609.442 notes. And since 2013, I have been focused on completing that that agreed upon principle format. So this year I was pretty much able to make that happen. This year's editions, one of the big things we were going for is to give the counties authority to open up 35-mile-an-hour segments of state routes within the unincorporated townships and communities for purposes of um, accessing fuel, groceries, dining,
Right.
but also as a connection point too, because all the county roads were allowed to be on kind of stem out from
Right.
those locations. So, they granted that for the cities, but they didn't grant that for the counties. And so that was another 3-year process. So we
Mhm.
were successful getting those privileges for the counties, and I've already got a number of counties uh, scheduled for how we can start to implement that. Um, One of the other cool successes, and this wasn't my bill push; it was actually the snowmobilers. But there was a bill that was successful this year that'll allow ATVs and UTVs to have a registration for snow tracks and be
Oh,
able to
okay.
participate on some of the groomed trail systems out there. And of course, that registration is a revenue stream that
Mhm.
they desperately need to help keep that program going. And the population's getting older, so it's a lot of work to ride a snowmobile. But if you can get out there on that snow on your UTV or your ATV, it makes it a little more accessible
Mhm.
for us older farts.
That's awesome. Well, very good. That's great.
And then on the budget side, um, we had a little we had a little concern, is the way I guess I could put it, um, with the way the Office of Financial Management was trying to redirect some funds in our dedicated
Mm.
um, Nova account for, and that's the account that accommodates everybody's recreation. But they were wanting to shift money to a particular agency.
Uh,
And, you know, we didn't have a problem necessarily with that. And, we wanted to support that for this biennium, but we also wanted it right. So the proviso requires that department to meet with the stakeholders and come up with a solution by September of 22. So that was that's that advocacy piece where you just get in there and say, hey, let's do this right. Why are we doing the sneaky squirrel? You know.
mhm. Right, right.
And then I was pretty pleased the way that's gone so far. And then the other piece is, with the registrations for ORV in the state of Washington, those funds are dedicated and help fill the bucket with the NOVA account for all the competitive trail maintenance or trail development projects out there. But when we structured the WATV, which is your ATV UTV
Mhm.
converted machines, we also set up a dedicated account. So the registration funds for those machines goes to a dedicated account to help the counties and cities implement or access on public roads.
Okay.
And, you know, since 2013, according to DOL, but I don't trust their figures, um, our our population, our community has grown to 58,000,
Mhm.
which, it's pretty impressive. That's a lot of people out there running around the community spending money if you think about it.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to do is um, create routes to get us from city to city or community to community, but put it in a safe, structured route environment and centered on tourism expenditures to
Right.
help the economics of the communities. Um, so this year, well, the governor decided that they were going to suspend our grant program last fall, which was a major disappointment.
Mhm.
So I had to get my district legislator in the transportation committee to fight like heck to get that back for us. But
Mhm.
I told him, I says, I said, it's great that you got that restored, but the problem is all these counties have gone on to other projects now and are focused on those because those funds weren't available. So I think you'd be better served putting that money into the 2021 through 23 biennium budget. And that totaled about $650,000.
Mhm.
And by the time they did all their discussions and negotiations and that all panned out, they ended up giving us $900,000 to help advance the WATV
You
access communities.
correct me if I'm wrong, but to be clear, $900,000 sounds like a lot, but it doesn't last very long at all, especially statewide.
Well, you're right, but you know, focused, it can create a lot of connectivity
Mhm.
to a lot of areas that do have a lot of um, OHV recreation.
Mhm.
And particularly, one would be the Kittitas County. And there are probably close to 800 to 1,000 miles of green dot roads that are on DNR, Fish and Wildlife, and some on some of the national forests. And that comes out of that 60s, 70 era
Mhm.
when those agencies were collaborating on behalf of motorized recreation. And so by being able to connect those roads coming down those drainages, we'll be able to create a huge difference. And then those funds can be used to help supplement for some of the grading
Mhm.
and gravel that may need to be used replaced over time. Unfortunately, people get used to riding on the sand dunes, and their first instinct is pedal to the metal and make that sand fly.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's times they get up on these roads and forget that, and that
Mhm.
creates rutting damage and erosion. And then DNR and Fish and Wildlife are going, well, we don't want you guys on our roads. costs us money to maintain that stuff. So
Right, right.
anyway, this way, what'll happen is with the counties controlling the purse strings,
Hmm.
they they will be able to coordinate and collaborate with the state agencies, and it puts the county in a position of being responsible for their tourism assets,
Hmm.
even though that asset may be on a different land manager's jurisdiction, which is on the county jurisdiction. So just trying to get that coordination, collaborative approach to
Right.
recreation going there.
Great. Very good. Um, well, that's awesome. I appreciate all the work that you put in. I mean, we're talking thousands of hours of just advocacy that you're doing, and it's just amazing and very much appreciated. I don't think there's anybody in the community that doesn't appreciate everything you've done. And I see on the Facebook group there, the different things that are happening, and it's pretty fantastic. So um, anyway, let's change the direction a little bit. Let's have a little more fun. Uh, do you currently ride yourself right now?
Yes, I do every chance I get. One of the downsides to advocacy is because of the time
Hmm.
commitment that's required. You don't always get a lot of time to do the thing you're advocating for. So this year, what I did is I planned out 3 weeks in May. So I'll be up in Northeast Washington, riding for the most part. Got a few public meetings to go or participate in when I'm up in that area. And then in June, I'll have a stopover in Kittitas County, which is about 3 hours south
Hmm.
of there, and meeting with the sheriff. And we're going to go over, what we can do to create more connectivity, and the county commissioners. And then I will be back for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to the coast side of Washington, and doing doing some research of creating some routes in that area, because one of the senators I'm working with to fix the DOL problem lives in
Hmm.
that area.
Oh,
Wants to
okay.
know wants to know what's in his backyard. So those are the working relationships you need to develop.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's about serving your community, which is uh, awesome to hear that's being done. Um,
But in that area, there's a DNR forest called Capitol Forest, and it has a lot of ATV trails and roads that are open. There's not a lot of opportunity quite yet for UTVs
mhm.
on our public lands, other than access to the road so you can get up and enjoy some of the scenery.
Right.
But I do know that while I've been pushing with the Washington Conservation Office, who administers all these grants, and then the different land managers out there, that you guys need to start thinking and incorporating in your comprehensive rec plans trails and activities for the UTVs, because
Mhm.
there's a huge market out there now that has bought these things, and they need a legitimate place to go play.
Right, right.
So those conversations are happening, and in fact, there's another DNR forest near me called Elby Heights, ORV,
Mhm.
on Trailhead Park area, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, they got a substantial grant awarded to them to create a comprehensive recreation plan for that landscape.
Mhm.
And they recognize that there's a great need for the ATV and UTV trail, because right now the trails host the Toyota 36-inch wheels, or the big the big things. So the ruts are quite deep, as you can imagine. Not
Hmm.
very suitable for an ATV anyway. Um, so that was encouraging to see that. So that's kind of starting to happen. The problem is life is short, and government takes years to do these things, and it's hard for people to understand and appreciate that. But it's just a reality.
Right, right. And of course, fellow enthusiasts can help out by, you know, like you said earlier, you know, when you're on roads in certain places, there's a place to, go throttle down, and there's other place where you need to respect, the surface you're driving on, and just
I
enjoy
call
it
it
for what it is.
infrastructure.
Yeah, the infrastructure that's in place. And because it does take a lot of money to put in there, and then definitely a lot of time and money to maintain it and so forth. So if we can cooperate and work together, and just understanding the why behind it, it really is beneficial to
It
everyone.
helps. It
It
helps.
really does, because it takes that one person who does a lot of damage to destroy 1,000 people's hours of work. And so it's just unfortunate to see that happen. So.
I think the one of the lessons I've learned from the Moab
Hmm.
area of the country is that we've loved it to death, and the communities are tired of us. And I think had the event planners shared the wealth by moving it around to different towns and cities,
Hmm.
and just kind of spread that impact around, they probably wouldn't be in the situation they're in right now.
Absolutely, absolutely agree.
And it's always a lot better to have a communities competing for your business than us having to go in and beg because we've wore out our welcome.
hmm Certainly, certainly. Yeah, it's happening nationwide. Just a matter of, as the sport increases in popularity, you have these concentrated riding areas with more and more population actually riding. It's just the impact is a lot greater. So I know that's true there as well as it is here. And so it takes a lot of education for a lot of people's parts to um, maintain the wheel moving in the right direction. So,
Exactly.
yep. So, one final question just for fun. What is your best ATV, UTV story that makes you laugh, or you look back on it and you just shake your head on, you want to share with us today? You get extra points and props if it's you actually, but if you witnessed it, that's fine too.
Well, I'm really conservative in my writing because I'm a retired construction worker and I've ran up ladders for the last 35 years.
Hmm.
So healing takes quite a bit longer now. So I really manage my risk.
Fair enough.
But my biggest laugh these days with regards to the ATVs and UTVs is just watching some of the stupid things people record on the Facebook
Hmm.
channels out there. It's just like, really? But yeah, my writing is just pretty much to sightseeing enjoyment.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I enjoy seeing the wildlife. I enjoy fishing. More of a sportsman orientation in my
Right.
ATV riding as opposed to adrenaline jockey.
Yeah. Versus the full send.
Now, I can share an experience I had when I used to ride motorcycles, and my joints could handle the impacts. There's a place in Kittitas County once again, but we were up on this trail, and my wife of 30 years at the time took me up this one trail, and it was rocky and really fogged in. The gorge was fogged in,
Ooh.
and I didn't have a lot of experience on motorcycles at that time because she kind of taught me how to ride. And we got up there. Okay, then we had to come back. The fog cleared, and the trail we were on was probably, I don't know, 8 to 12 inches wide. I mean, somebody just basically drilled a ledge into the rock to ride on. And I was so upset with her because I'm like, I could have died on that. Yeah, she just, she says, we made it. We're okay. Let's go on. But anyway, that was pretty shocking to me is how nature can do that to you.
Wow, that's amazing. You had no idea like the environment you're riding on. You're just riding on your 8 inches and didn't even know what that 8 inches was.
Exactly.
That's wild. That's 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 up there with probably one of the most
And
wild stories I've
I guess
heard.
I guess I do have one for ATVs. A few years back, went with a group. Actually, they call ATV Overland. They've got their little channel out there. We went on a ride up on the Paiute Trail system
Mm-hmm.
in Utah, and there was this one segment of trail we had to cover, and I don't even call it that, but I mean we were on sheer cliff again, and there was, your tires are rubbing against the rock on one side, and your tires like half on the trail in places. And then it's just this huge tumble down into the bottom of this ravine. So, yeah, I told him we don't need to do this one again. Trust me.
No, no, especially with some of the newer units, the um, new four-wheelers that are 55 inches, that wouldn't work. Uh,
Nope,
no,
nope, nope, nope,
no,
not at all.
no. Well, Ted, awesome. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate you sharing with everything that's going on there in Washington, and it's a constant uh, work that you got going on that needs to keep happening for people to keep enjoying the sport. And if there's any way that people can reach out to you and maybe help out, is there a best way to contact you? Is there a Facebook page or?
Probably the best way to get a hold of me is just my email,
Okay,
and that's tedsbiz@gmail.com.
okay,
And the other thing I wanted to share too is, if you folks want to come to Washington and, where do I go ride? I would recommend that you check out Washington Hometown OHV.
okay,
You can just Google it and link to it there. That page will give you an opportunity to download for free an app.
right,
And this app has a map, obviously, and they've layered on there all the trails, all the gravel roads that are open on all the public lands. And they've also layered over 10,000 miles of road that are open for street
okay,
legal ATVs and UTVs. And if you do the app, you'll show up as a little dot and you can actually navigate just your way around. Um, Word note on that, make sure you download the region section on your phone so when you get out of cell coverage, you can still keep navigating.
right, yeah, okay.
But
Yeah.
it's the tool I'm using to create WATV tourism in Washington State.
Okay,
So
very good. And you said that was Washington Hometown OHV.com.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. Well, not the .com. Just
Okay.
Google
Okay.
that,
Just Google it. Okay. Well, I'll
and then
Google it and I'll make sure I put a
then
link in
you'll
the
see it.
description. Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah. I'll
sure.
put a link in the description along with your email and so forth. And that way people can reach out to both and definitely, yeah, follow the map, stay on the map. So
Great.
again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And
And just one more piece too. My approach to the WATV is the best way to secure its future access
Mm-hmm.
is to make it part of the tourism, Washington State tourism activities, and part of that sector, and actually be able to show the financial contribution that our community contributes. And to me, I think that is a better way to establish future generations of access.
Yeah, okay. So good point on that. Let's say me coming, because I don't necessarily have a street legal four-wheeler or UTV. What if I wanted to come to Washington? What do I need to do?
Well, that's a great question. Those rules are changing because there was some more legislation.
Hmm.
So maybe we can have another cast
Okay.
on that topic alone.
Okay. That sounds great. We'll definitely have to put a pin in that and come back to it.
Sure.
Okay. Well, very good. Ted, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your
Very
time,
welcome.
and I'm glad you could make it on today.
Great. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Take care.